it doesn't make sense that the person who was the runner-up twice came first and the person who won twice came third. Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. I hope you're all good. I feel like we've had a busy week. We've had 3 games to talk about, and we've also got 3 games to look ahead to. So this podcast episode is going to be very busy in itself. But also, the thing that I'm going to start off with, which is the most recent thing in my head, I feel like I'm fidgeting a lot. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see, just because I'm happy, but then I'm also very confused about what happened last night in the Ballon d'Or, and that is basically what I based the warm-up poll question on. So I put the question out. I'm literally going on Instagram as well, so we're going to get the live results. And I think this is probably my most voted for poll since I've done this podcast. And to be fair, I'm not really questioning why, because so much outrage about who won the Ballon d'Or basically last night for the women. Men, I think Dembele, he was always going to get it. He won the Champions League with PSG, obviously. It was kind of obvious. And I felt like we all thought, not even just Arsenal fans, all thought that Alessia Russo should have got it. But then Bonmati got it for the 3rd time in a row. So basically, I put out the question, who should have won? Aitana Bonmati, Alessia Russo, Marina Caldente. And the poll results show 10% of you agree that Bonmati was the deserved winner. 63% of you said Alessia Russo should have won. And 27% of you said Marina Caldente should have won. That is a lot of people to vote, firstly. So thank you to anyone that got their anger or confusion or frustration, whatever emotion out on my warm-up poll. I appreciate it, because I feel like this is a very good view of how everyone's viewing this, because I thought, I could have had Leah Williamson in there, Chloe Kelly, because obviously they won multiple competitions, so they had a very good chance. But for me, it was these 3 players that it was obvious it was going to be one of them. But I don't think Bonmati getting it was what anyone thought. And in a way, I feel like my poll question should have been, why didn't Alessia Russo get the Ballon d'Or? It was literally written for her to get it. But instead, I thought, instead of going with a question which is pretty much impossible to answer, because she should have got it, in my opinion, and I know a lot of you guys were saying that as well. A lot of people commented and popped up to me in my DMs, were just like, yeah, I don't get it. She's been robbed. All these things. But I think what shocked most of us is that the Ballon d'Or is usually based off European success. And how much more success can you get winning the Champions League with your club, and then also winning the Euros with England, with your country? It makes no sense. So for Alessia Russo to not get the Ballon d'Or, it actually genuinely doesn't make sense to me, and I know it doesn't make sense to a lot of other people as well. I think her losing it to someone, or not losing it, but she still came 3rd, which is incredible, and Bonmati definitely deserves to be in the top 3. Don't get me wrong, she is a world-class footballer. We know that she's won 2 previous Ballon d'Ors before last night in a row, so we know she is a deserved winner. But I think for me, my issue is with the voting system rather than who actually won the award, because you can't tell me that Alessia Russo wins the Champions League, she wins the Euros with both club and country, and she doesn't even come in the top 2, but then Marina Caldente comes 2nd because she's won it with her club, but then she came runner-up for country, so she should be 3rd maybe. And then Bonmati wins it, and she was the runner-up for the Champions League with Barcelona, and she was the runner-up for the Euros with Spain. It doesn't make sense that the person who was the runner-up twice came first and the person who won twice came 3rd. I'm going to put my rant on pause for now, because there's so much to talk about in terms of Arsenal this week, but let me know down in the comments what you're thinking, because I feel like the last few weeks, this whole build-up, I've been like, Alessia Russo's got it. It's got to be her. So many of you last night had the same outrage as I did, and it's more just confusion. So yeah, I guess the question that I've sort of put out to you, and I want you guys to answer in the comments below, is, was Alessia Russo robbed of that Ballon d'Or? Because, there's a lot of, I'm not going to say anything else, but I feel like there's a lot of people that will agree that she was. So that's basically the warm-up poll. And to be fair, I don't want to actually, before I move on to the main section, let's just talk a bit more about the Ballon d'Or, because I don't want to focus on just that one award. We had so many successful Arsenal players. We obviously had Gyökeres get an award, which was amazing to see, even though obviously it was more with Sporting rather than with Arsenal, but still one of our gunners right now, so it was great to see him pick up an award. And also Arsenal won the Club of the Year award for the women's side, which if it went to any other team, I'd be very confused because obviously we did win that Champions League. And that usually, in terms of all the previous Ballon d'Ors, that's how they base the awards off your European success more so. So for me, it makes complete sense why Arsenal won the Club of the Year award, basically. But yeah, I feel like that's pretty much all the breakdown of the Ballon d'Or right now. Let me know in the comments if you want to mention anything else, and I can obviously talk about it in the next week's episode, or just replying to your comment in the comments. But yeah, Ballon d'Or was a bit mixed. Bit of success for Arsenal, bit of success for other teams when it maybe should have been Arsenal. But, you know, either way, it was a good award night. I did stay up to watch it, and it put me in a bit of a mood because obviously Russo missed out. But, you know, there's always next year, and hopefully Arsenal will get even more European success, men or women, or both. I'm not complaining. And then next Ballon d'Or, we'll see an Arsenal player getting the Ballon d'Or. That would be amazing. That would actually be the dream. So before I carry on waffling, let's get into the episode. 3 games to talk about. Let's dive right in. Right, so now I'm looking at my notes and I'm like, yeah, we've got these 3 games to talk about, which obviously is a lot. But then as well as that, we've got a few other maybe smaller things or things away from the pitch. We've got a boardroom revamp. There's new people coming in, new people going out. I'm not too in the know about all of that, so I'm going to brush past that. But it's good to know. We've also got a few injuries, which isn't good to know. Nono Madueke, he's got his knee injury and he could be out for up to 2 months. And that is gutting because in a lot of my notes that I've said, not only this week that I'm about to say, but also in the past few episodes, since this season has started basically, Madueke has been such a key player for us. So to see him out, it's going to be interesting, but hopefully Saka can come back in. We've got Ethan Wanera. We do have that squad depth, which is something that when I was talking the other day to some friends, I was like, oh my God, we've actually got two good players in each position. And it even got the question at work. A lot of people were saying, oh, do you reckon that our backup team, which is crazy saying they're a backup team because those players are so good, would be able to compete in the Premier League? And everyone was pretty much coming to the conclusion that even our backup team would be able to come in the top 5 of the Premier League. And I was like, that's crazy, but I actually kind of agree with it because if you look at it, we've got Madueke as a backup potentially. Eze is seen as more of a backup. Mosquera is seen as a backup. Havertz, I'd say, is the backup because then if Gyökeres is one, or either or, I'm like, that is a good squad. So it is interesting that we are in a very good position. And even with injuries, I still feel a little bit hopeful. Another thing as well off the pitch, before we get into the on-pitch matters, is we did have the Women's Champions League draw. I'm not going to go into all of it because if you want to see all the draws and who Arsenal are playing, then head over to, obviously, Arsenal socials on the website. They haven't actually confirmed the exact dates yet, so that's another reason why I don't want to say it in case suddenly it's like it changes or we don't know. But either way, I just find it so funny looking at the draw as a whole because for some reason, Chelsea and Barcelona always come as a package deal. It's like buy 2 for 1. Like, it's a game that I want to go to. I don't support either team, but I want to be going to that Chelsea-Barca game because it's always such a good game. Like, they're 2 of the best clubs in the world and they always get put together in earlier stages, so you know that one of them isn't going to reach that final. Same as last year we saw it. Obviously, Arsenal ended up playing Barca in the final, but our road to that final wasn't anywhere near Barca, whereas Chelsea got them, obviously 2 legs, got absolutely demolished. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I do think I'm loving the new format of the Champions League because it's changed so much that you sort of just play each club once and then you're in a big table. It's basically the same as the men's Champions League format, rather than having legs against, like one first leg, second leg against a team home and away. You can sort of just play a variety of teams, and I think it's more even, more teams get to play, and also it means we can travel to pretty cool places. I've never actually been to an away fixture abroad with Arsenal before, so I'm hoping that this season is the season I do it because I'd honestly love to do that. So yeah, I feel like there's been quite a bit of exciting news. Managed to dodge the bullet with Barca in the first stage anyway, so I'm pretty happy with that. But let's get on to the games because that is the main thing of Arsenal. We are here to play football, and it's been a pretty mixed week. Let's start with the first game, which literally happened as I put this video out, not this video, the last video out last week. It was Athletic Club versus Arsenal. I actually predicted this to be a 2-1 win to Arsenal, and it was a 2-0, so I wasn't too far off, and similar to previous predictions, it actually worked out slightly better because it meant that we didn't actually concede. I think just from this, just 3 takeaways I came up with is that Gabriel looks so comfy as captain. I feel like at the back he's very solid, he's very vocal as well, you can see that passion, and I think when you've got the likes of Mosquera playing right next to you, who's a little bit more inexperienced obviously in Arsenal's backline because he's just been stepping in for Saliba, it's really great to see him direct that play. Obviously he did end up headering Gyökeres at one point, and I remember watching it and I was like, oh my god, like obviously Gyökeres' head was like bleeding at the back, but either way, apart from that, because he ended up being fine, so it's all good. It was just really, really good to see how he can turn over play, hold up play, but also he is such a leader on the pitch. And if you haven't seen it already, I spoke about the captaincy with Cecil, who was my most recent guest on the Arsenal Humans Fan Zone. Great episode. We spoke about his whole journey and everything, not just Arsenal focused, but how his love for football went away, and then he managed to get it back through finding AFTV and different organisations like that. So definitely worth a watch. But he did say that he loves Gabriel as captain. There's been obviously so many question marks over the captaincy with Rice, Ødegaard, even Saka as well. But when you've got obviously Ødegaard and Saka injured, it had to go to Gabriel, and I think it's so good that we've got so many leaders in this squad. So yeah, that was probably my first takeaway. The second one is that I'm quite impressed with Arteta's decision making at the start of this week anyways, because I feel like he's got the players to do it, and maybe he's not used to having this much freedom or this much flexibility with different players, especially in that midfield three, but it seemed to work. The players he used, even when we had players out injured, he was able to adapt, so I'm very happy with that one. And then kind of linking, but the third thing I noticed was also the rotation. Martinelli was a key player in this game. To be fair, Martinelli was a key player in both games this week. But it was just great to see how he used that rotation. And also, a lot of fans write off certain players. A lot of fans wrote off Martinelli. I didn't think that Martinelli would have been a starting player, and it's proved that he's not, but we shouldn't rule him out completely from coming on the pitch during that 90 minutes because, as Arteta's proved, he's successful when he does that. So yeah, I'm happy we got obviously off to a 2-0 win, a good start in the Champions League. So I'm very excited because obviously I'll be looking ahead to tomorrow's game, which is also in the Champions League, so I'm excited to build on from the success. Moving on to I'm going chronologically as I always do, moving on to the next game, Arsenal 0, Man United 0. I did predict this to be a 3-2 win to Arsenal, thinking, as it's always been the last few years, there's going to be so many goals, this is going to be so exciting, the ability, like the calibre of talent that we have in the attacking front for both Arsenal and United is so exciting, but sadly also the defence is so good. I say sadly, I mean it depends how you're looking at it, because if it's United attacking us, I'm very grateful, our defence is very good, but it just meant that if you're a neutral fan, there were no goals, and I do feel like there should have been a couple. I'm going to be real, I was disappointed it was a draw. I felt like we should have won the 3 points. Same for the men's game that I'll talk about in a bit. But a few takeaways from this. The first thing I've noticed is that I think Slegers actually needs to rotate slightly sooner. She rotates, which is great, and usually we saw last season and we've seen the start when Chloe Kelly comes on. It's great when she comes on that rotation, or Ford, or I'm trying to think, because she's mixed up the starting 11 so often that sometimes Olivia Smith is starting, sometimes she's not. So whoever she brings on, she seems to time it well. But I think this was the first game where we were properly tested in the WSL. And I think it showed a lot that we've been playing against teams that we're used to scoring 4 or 5 goals against. We almost had that confidence. And then United, we just couldn't get past it. So I do feel like rotation maybe could have come soon. I do feel like Kyra Cooney-Cross is a bit of a question mark right now. I know someone commented a couple of weeks ago and I mentioned it last week, and I don't want to have to mention it every single week, but I don't get why Kyra Cooney-Cross isn't getting any minutes. I feel like this was a game that she could have come on, brought that speed and that energy into the midfield, bring off Kim Little at the 70th minute. Kim Little, we need her in these games, but she doesn't need to play the whole 90. She can play 70 minutes. If you put in Kyra Cooney-Cross, then she'd get a run out, she'd bring fresh energy, and she'd really want to prove herself. So I feel like she'd play even better. So, it is interesting. We'll just have to have to see what happens with that. But that's probably my first takeaway. Second takeaway is a bit weird because it's not actually an Arsenal player, but Tallis Joyce is probably one of the best keepers in the WSL. And I put that in here because I want to make a point that if we were playing against any other keeper, bar maybe Hannah Hampton, obviously for Chelsea, who collected a Ballon d'Or award last night, obviously because she is one of the best in the world, bar Chelsea, if we played any other team, most of the shots would have gone in and we could have got a tally of about 3 or 4 goals, I reckon. I mean, there was that one shot that I'm picturing in my head, Olivia Smith, and I thought she was about to lob her, but no chance when you've got Tallis Joyce in the net. It's very hard to score against keepers like that, and it is so frustrating because Arsenal didn't have a bad game. I think that's why I was so disappointed after that we got just that 1 point, because I felt like we should have been able to find the net a few times. United probably should have found the net as well, but I just felt like we had 2 very good goalkeepers up against each other, which is why it stayed 0-0. And this sort of leads me on to my third point. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Olivia Smith is our secret weapon. The shots she was performing, yes, they didn't go in because Tallis Joyce is a mad keeper, but I reckon on a different day with a different keeper or even a different situation, obviously we were away from home, that adds to it. I do think that Olivia Smith's goals will go in the net, and I think that is what we need, someone who's got that confidence to take the ball out of their foot and just shoot from a distance. That's something that we haven't really seen from a few players because they want to either cross it in or take on a few players, whereas she's had that confidence to take it out on her feet and try and score. And obviously it worked in the first week. She got an assist in the second week, and I was really hoping she'd be able to get another unreal shot from distance, but sadly it didn't go in. But as a whole, when I say I'm disappointed because I feel like we need to be not dropping too many points. Obviously Chelsea are top of the league, which obviously is very frustrating, but it's very early days. And to be fair, because of how United were playing, I'm just happy we didn't drop all the points, and both sides took 1 point, which was probably a fair result. Moving on to that last game, it's Arsenal 1, Man City 1, and it's so frustrating because this is another game in 1 week where we drew, and in my opinion, we should have won. We should have got all the points. I did predict it to be a 2-1 because I was like, yeah, there's going to be a last-minute winner. I didn't know it would be a last-minute equaliser from Martinelli, which obviously is great from him, but I felt like, I'm not going to say my thoughts are all messy, I'm going to put them into my points. So the first point is we can't be experimenting in these big games. Pep has never really gone on such a defence. He parked the bus. The defence was quite high, and that's how we managed to get in behind and get the goal. And he was very much playing on the counter-attack. We didn't really expect that. It's something you don't really see from Pep Guardiola that much. But what I didn't expect was that Arteta would be experimenting as much as he did with the midfield. Don't get me wrong, it was great in the Forest game. It was great in the Champions League game. But I think when you're playing against City, yes, City haven't got off to the best start of their season. City didn't have the best season last year, but it is still City. They are still one of the big clubs that they can make or break your title race. And I don't feel like they made our title race. I don't think they broke it. Don't get me wrong. We are still within 5 points of Liverpool, which is still a good chance that we will definitely come in that top 3, but whether we can push on to come in that top spot, it's still open. It's still up for debates. But yeah, I think experimenting wise, it's so good. Like I said about the previous game for the men's side, so good. He's got those options and that squad depth, but I don't think that we should be really trying to, put in different combinations that maybe haven't played as well together. So I just think that was a bit questionable. But one thing I did like, which was my second takeaway, is that Eze was playing as that number 10, and that's a position that I think we've all been looking forward to him being in, if that makes sense. I think it was just really good. Like, I can't be the only one that was excited. I know a lot of other people are excited to see Eze in that number 10 because we know he can play on the right, we know he can play on the left, but I feel like we've seen it even at previous clubs, and just how he excels is in that number 10. And obviously he was the one to, from the middle of the pitch, pass it, chip it over to Martinelli, who then scored, lobbed the City keeper. So I think it's great to have him in that number 10, and hopefully with certain injuries we'll be able to see him in that position a bit more. The third takeaway, which I don't know if I'm feeding into loads of other people's theories with what Arteta's doing, and I'm nowhere near saying Arteta out. Like, I'm not even getting to that point. That those words aren't coming out my mouth with me believing it. But I'm just wondering if Arteta is being a little too cautious. Some people are saying conservative. Some people are saying he's just not taking any risks. And I think that's something we saw with Liverpool. It was quite a dull game, if I'm being honest. I said this a few weeks ago on my podcast. It didn't fill me with the most excitement. But in terms of Arteta being too cautious, it just felt a little bit like, yeah, it was a little bit safe considering how City were playing. We were sort of leaving it down to them as well to dictate the game rather than us. So I just feel like at home, maybe we should have got more. But don't get me wrong, there were scenes when that goal went in from Martinelli. I mean, on socials, I was scrolling through and I saw everyone just throwing limbs. Like, it was great to see. But considering how many shots we had and how we should have won that game, for us to be celebrated so much for a draw, it was just a bit like, what's going on? But either way, I'm happy that we didn't drop all the points for both the United and City game in the WSL and in the Premier League because, we're still in the chance of that title race. It's just we don't want to keep getting draws because that will cost us eventually. But yeah, that's basically my look back at the 3 games. If there's anything I've missed out that you think is worth noting in the comments, let me know. If you disagree with any particular points I've come up with, also let me know. But just generally let me know what your thoughts are on the games and we'll look ahead to the next 3. Okay, it is the predictions part of the episode already. I'm going to try keep this brief because I've got to get to work soon and I feel like this episode has already been kind of long. We've got a lot of things that we've had to speak about. But we've got 3 games. We've got Port Vale tomorrow night. I'm going to say it's a 2-0 to Arsenal. We've got Newcastle at the weekend in the Premier League. I'm going to say it's a 4-1 to Arsenal, which is kind of crazy, but I predicted a 5-2 the other day and it was 5-1. So, I'm trusting that we can get lots of goals and I think this is a game we need to show up in. And then Arsenal, Aston Villa in the WSL at the weekend as well. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win to us. So they're 3 predictions with literally no context. At this point, I feel like I'm just like, yeah, what would look good? What's realistic but also would be great for Arsenal? So they're the 3 predictions I've come up with. It would be mad if any of them came right, let alone at least one of them. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the games for next week. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on the game next week. And also, if you've enjoyed watching this video and you haven't already, please subscribe. I'm loving this community that I have been growing. And it's great to hear all your feedback in the comments and your just views on the games as well, because yeah, I like the space that is being created here. If you haven't already, obviously subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, give me a thumbs up if you like it, comment down below anything to do with Arsenal about this week, next week, anything, especially about that Ballon d'Or, because I feel like I started this podcast off a little bit ranty, but I think it's just because it was a big shock. But we did find success at the Ballon d'Or for Arsenal as a whole, whether that's Gyökeres or the women's side as a squad. So it was a good night as a whole. Anyways, yeah, that's all from me. So have a good week. Enjoy the football, which kicks off tomorrow night for Arsenal. And I will see you next week on Tuesday.